Greetings, everyone. We'll just give a few seconds for everybody to join and we'll get going. All right, so let's start. And again, welcome everyone. I'm excited to be with you today as we're talking about something that truly doesn't come around often in our industry, a once in a generation global moment, also known as 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be the largest sporting event ever staged. And today we'll focus on your destination or your product and how you can show up thoughtfully with an emphasis on some practical media and content strategies. So we are going to zero in on actionable ideas you can take back to your teams and start applying right away. So with that, I am Elena Prostova. I'm a vice president at Miles Partnership, and I'm joined today by two incredible partners, Marissa Moore from Expedia Media Group, who will share with you what they're seeing from booking behavior and how destinations can plug into real traveler intent, and Andy X from Tripscout, who will talk about how content, social, and itinerary-led storytelling can capture this audience, especially beyond the host cities. So again, the goal today is very practical. We want to leave you with some real ideas, things you can implement, scale, or add to your already existing 2026 World Cup FIFA strategy. So let's ground ourselves in a few data points that frame the scale of this opportunity. And we'll share some additional resources afterwards if you want to go deeper. There's lots of great research that has been coming out now almost weekly. So, and as many of you already know, this is the first World Cup hosted across 3 countries. And it is in 16 cities, expands 48 teams, 104 matches, making it the largest tournament in history. And that literally means millions of traveling fans and billions engaging globally. So this is not a single city event, it's a regional moment. And that makes it so significant for destinations because the event itself is built for exploration and travel. So now let's look at early demand signals because this is where it gets real for us marketers. And in the first ticket sales phase, there were over 500 million ticket requests, which tells us appetite is massive. And you can see the list of countries in the slide with the largest demand. And we know these are very high value, long haul travelers, the ones that we want to attract our destinations. And when we look at the most in demand matches from opening match in Mexico City to the finals at the MetLife Stadium in New York, New Jersey, it's clear that this is not just planning a match. Attending this event is planning a journey for every fan that is coming to visit. So let's look at the audience a little bit more closely, again, to see the scale of this opportunity more clearly. So we see that nearly half of international travelers express interest in traveling to the US for the 2026 World Cup, which again signals real potential for destinations to tap into some new global international audiences. And once they decide to go, it's truly more about the game. It's about more than the game. 70% rank local culture and cuisine as top trip motivators. So it's a full destination experience surrounding the match. And for DMOs, this is where the opportunity expands. It's about how your destination becomes part of that broader journey before, between, and after the matches. And when we translate that intent into impact, again, the numbers are very compelling. We know that major tournaments typically drive a 20 to 40% boost in visitation in host markets. And this, again, not your average travelers. They spend 2 to 3 times more than typical leisure guests. And it's about more than just immediate lift. Like we've seen host cities seeing a sustained increase in brand awareness, somewhere between 25 to 30%. And in this situation, the timing is key. Knowing when travelers move from inspiration to planning to booking is truly what determines if your message lands or gets missed. So with that, I'm excited to turn it over to Marissa from Expedia Media Group to share what their booking data is showing and how destinations can plug into those high demand windows and high demand, high value travelers. So Marissa, take it away.
Thank you, Elena. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Moore. As I was introduced so nicely, I'm with Expedia Group and our advertising space specifically. So I wanted to give you an overview of just our World Cup content, but also dive into historical trends too. So just as we were talking about, so we understand what we can do with the data we have at that right time. Before we dive into the World Cup content, I want to give you all a better idea of how we help you all reach our travelers. So, when a lodging or transport supplier decides to partner with Expedia Group, they get the power of one trusted marketplace. The combined power of our well-known and loved travel brands with the extended reach of our B2B distribution network, which includes financial institutions, airline loyalty programs, and some of the biggest travel agencies in the world. We all know the traveler journey is complex, and we know it's important for your brand to show up in a variety of touch points. So we're here to make it easier for you to do that and reach those travelers. Expedia Group is a technology company focused on the traveler. We treat every traveler touch point on our site as a breadcrumb to inform your future strategy using our first-party data. And our travel media network puts your destinations in front of travelers everywhere that they are. Our suite of advertising solutions gives partners access to massive reach, award-winning creative and media expertise, and unrivaling targeting and measurement capabilities. But now, we're going to dive into what I like to call the meat and potatoes of the presentation and what you all have been waiting for. This is going to take a look back at historical insights so that you all know when to reach the traveler at the right time with that right message. As we all know, World Cups have drawn massive crowds. Throughout the years, the number of matches have peaked at 64, with stadium capacities reaching from 2.1 million to 3.5 million. These matches also observed higher levels of attendance, reaching up to 97%, with international visitation ranging from 30 to 54%. Now, 2026 sets a new benchmark. The World Cup will feature 104 matches, a significant increase from the 64 in previous editions. Stadium capacity will reach 7 million seats, nearly double past tournaments. And even at that 71% attendance level, that translates over 5 million fans, which is the largest live audience in history. But here's the nuance. 71% is far below the 93 to 97% we've seen historically. Fewer fans in stadiums could signal softer demand for accommodations compared to the hype we've seen in past World Cups. While 5 million fans is still massive, the expected attendance percentage being lower than previous tournaments suggests there is opportunity to activate strategies to drive further demand. Visitor mix also adds to that impact, with projections showing an even split, 50% international and 50% domestic. This means an additional 1.6 million international visitors, fueling tourism and hospitality across North America. But again, the lower attendance percentage could mean that these visitors are spread more thinly across markets. And Elena so graciously gave us an intro to this slide earlier, but before we dive into the activations, I also want to re-emphasize what this tournament really means to North America, DMOs, your local businesses, and whatnot. This will essentially be the largest thing in North America this year, and it's unlike anything we've experienced before. We'll see competition across 16 host cities spanning across the US, Canada, and Mexico. For the first time, the tournament expands to 48 national teams, representing 5 different continents. That means more matches, more fans traveling, and a much broader international footprint. There will be 104 total matches, with an overwhelming majority, 78 of those, played here in the US. All knockout matches from the quarterfinals onward are also hosted in the US, which is a huge driver of tourism. With 7 million tickets available and more than 5 million fans expected to attend, this will be the highest attended World Cup of all time. When we look at how travelers book around major sporting events, we consistently see three clear phases, and understanding these can help us maximize revenue opportunities. First, there's the growth phase, roughly 180 to 40 days out. This is when we have the early planners, especially our international friends, lock in their stays. These guests typically stay longer, so their window is our best opportunity to secure higher value, higher length of stay bookings to your destination. For events like Euro 2024, this group drove the majority of early demand, and we expect the same behavior heading into 2026. This phase is all about capturing long stays and getting ahead of the curve before that rush begins. Next, we move into the acceleration phase, about 40 to 7 days out. This is when booking momentum really picks up. Fans are finalizing details, and we see a surge in reservations, though stays tend to be shorter than initially booked in that early planning window. Finally, the peak phase happens in that last 7 days. This is dominated by domestic and last-minute travelers. These bookings are typically shorter lengths of stay and highly reactive to availability and pricing. It's most compressed demand period, but a critical one for capturing those last-minute revenue opportunities. Together, these three phases form the predictive demand curve we see across almost any major sporting event. And knowing where travelers are in this planning cycle can help us optimize our strategy at every point. Let's look at Euro 2024 as a reference point to understand how demand typically builds across a major tournament. First, the growth phase. This early window represented about 28 to 41% of total bookings. What's important here is that the group stage matches drove the highest share, hitting around 41%. This tells us this is the moment when fans are planning ahead, exploring options, and still thinking aspirationally. Next, we move into the acceleration phase. This accounted for roughly 29 to 34% of bookings. During Euro 2024, this period was heavily influenced by the quarterfinals, and that's going to depend a lot on the matchups. If strong national teams advance, we see a noticeable spike because fan confidence and excitement jump quickly. Finally, the peak phase. This delivered the final 24 to 37% of bookings. By this point, demand becomes very last minute and is predominantly driven by domestic fans who can react quickly to results. So overall, Euro 2024 showed us a clear pattern. Early interest sparks from international travelers. Mid-tournament momentum is matchup dependent, and the final surge comes from local last-minute buyers. Now, let's dive into the activations and concepts or the opportunity that lies ahead of us. So we have launched essentially a platform called Summer of Soccer Coast to Coast Planner. And this is essentially a unified destination that brings fans and travelers directly into the excitement of the World Cup experience. This platform curates the best of summer culture, highlights inspiration, travel ideas, and pairs it with tools that make planning easy. It connects both ticket holders and fans who want to travel to be part of the energy around their team. What makes this especially powerful is the ability to integrate multiple destinations into a single global platform. Each location becomes part of the fan journey, positioned not as a stop along the way, but as extensions of the overall soccer experience. Through a mix of targeted on-site advertising and social amplification, travelers will discover this planner and use it to explore, map out their trips, and engage with content tailored to their interests. Ultimately, this creates a coast-to-coast ecosystem where fans can dream, plan, and experience more, making this summer's soccer moment feel bigger, more connected, and more accessible than ever. This slide shows how our media ecosystem guides a traveler to the platform and gets them from inspiration to booking. On the left, we see fans who are either planning their World Cup experience or dreaming up their ideal match day itinerary. Our offsite and onsite media placements, like paid social or native placements, push these fans into the Summer of Soccer coast to coast planner. From there, the platform connects seamlessly to the booking environment where fans can purchase featured activities, flights, and stays. This keeps their journey connected from their initial inspiration all the way through conversion. Now that we've reviewed the platform and a few different insights, I want to leave you all with these three key takeaways that you can really activate on for your specific need, your case, your DMO, whatever that may be. First, identify the highest value audience for you all, both international and domestic, and use demand trends in each host city to guide where and how to focus your efforts. Second, engage travelers throughout the booking journey by tapping into the social energy around the World Cup and inspiring them to explore destinations beyond just the host cities. And third, use innovation to capture new travelers. This will be such a large global scale event, and we haven't seen anything like that. So we can't stay in the status quo and start to test things with obviously insights and data to back it and innovate on your strategy. Together, these steps will help us maximize reach, relevance, and conversion as we head into the World Cup. Thank you all. I will pass it on over to Andy now.
Thank you, Marissa, for great practical insights. It was really interesting to see how booking behavior like shifts through the tournament phases, and also how you need to, plan long term, but also be ready to be nimble to react to that, very flexible, as you said, like changes in the targeted media audiences, which teams progress to the next round. So really excellent points. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So now we're going to build on that by looking at the content and storytelling side of the equation, because once travelers are in that planning window, they are actively searching for inspiration and guidance. So I'm excited to bring in Andy from Tripscout to talk about how destinations can insert themselves into fan itineraries in some compelling and interesting ways. So, Andy?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Elena. Really appreciate it. And actually, before I'll dive in, first I'll just say thank you to Marissa. I think one of the things that was really fascinating about that presentation was a lot of the quantitative and a lot of the facts and the dollars and how things are going to be moving as people are coming into the United States for the World Cup. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go much more qualitative and a little bit more emotional about who's coming and why are they coming here and what they're hoping to get out of this. And then trying to take a little bit more about how people are feeling and thinking about how we design stories and experiences to address them. So again, my name is Andy Axe. I'm co-founder president of Tripscout. I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a couple of moments. But let's see if this slides change. I'm clicking, but it's not moving. There we go. So, first, I think the way to think about this World Cup is like this is a rare double bucket list. On one end, I think going to the World Cup for most travelers and watching your team play on the largest stage is something that most people, if they're going to go once in their entire life. This is a trip that you save for. This is the dream that you dream of. And for the people that are coming, it's finally here. They are very, very excited. But I think, the other portion of this is that for so many people, this is their first time or might be their only time coming to the United States. And, you have two really great things going on. And I think one, that drives excitement to actually come to the game and spend the money and take the big trip. But it also, raises the ante and makes sure that people want to get the most out of their travel experience. Um, but at the same time here, for all the excitement that exists around that, I think right now, we have to look at the world that we live in and realize that, as exciting as that should be, there's certainly a little bit of a pensive attitude or a bit of anxiety. right now that's coming with travelers, especially as they're making the decision as to whether or not they're going to come. And I think the fact, that I love from Elena's side is just how many tickets requests there have been. But again, those are requests. And so we have to figure out, how do we translate that into actual visits? And I don't want to spend, too much time, I think, telling us all about things that we already know, but I think it's important to kind of address some of the realities that, is impacting travelers' decisions as to whether or not they're going to partake. We all know what's going on right now, with the border. There's anxiety that, will I be able to get a visa? Will my visa be honored? Secondly, there's concern about, how am I going to be treated while I'm in the United States? Um, and then lastly, a very real one is just, right now, we all feel the impact of inflation. Even as Americans traveling domestically within our own country, we feel the price of, airfare and hotels and, just the cost of essentially buying hospitality experiences. We also have to remember right now that we have a fairly strong dollar. And so for a lot of people who are going to be traveling inbound to the United States, not only is the United States expensive for us, but essentially as they're starting to buy US dollars, it's just a big, big financial commitment. And so, for all of these people that are going to be, making the decision to come here into the United States, we're getting to this point, and actually, sorry, I'll go back a quick moment, is, the other factor I think to include here, and this is just, I don't know, it's one of my favorite memes, and this has been around forever. But there's just a reality of that, the United States is enormous. And most people who have not been here before logistically do not understand what it means to travel within the United States at all. And if anything, people are usually imagining that something is going to be much easier and much less of a commitment to get around than we all know that it really is. And so I think when you combine, some of the financial realities and political realities with just the logistics of getting around the United States, with such a big decision to come and so much excitement, you get everybody into a state of mind that we call trip maxing. And it's this idea and the stress and anxiety of like, I have to make the most of this trip. Um, and, the idea of trip maxing might be enough to scare people away on its own. But for the people that are coming, yes, it's exciting. But now it's also a lot of work. And so, with all of this combined, it's made us start to think about if we're going to put together activations, particularly as non-host cities, how do we design these experiences to actually captivate travelers to want to come and address some of those concerns very, very head on? And so, when we've started to put together activations, I think this is the same challenge for everybody. But it's how do we create an itinerary for the matches, that essentially takes these bucket list experiences and comes up with something that's efficient, affordable, and something that makes sure that they're really confident that they're going to enjoy their time here in the United States, here in the host cities, and hopefully here in your destination. And so, we've partnered so far with a couple of destinations that are not host cities. And before I go into that, I'll tell you just a little bit more about us and kind of, how we approached putting together those activations. Um, so we are the largest audience on social media that's focusing on travel. So, around 10 years ago, we had this insight that social media was turning into sort of the new search engine. We were watching people in 2015, before Instagram even had ads, open up Instagram and type in Iceland in the way that they used to type that into Google. And so we built this network of 150 different travel accounts. And the idea was to take the strategies of SEO and move them onto Instagram. So we have a network of accounts like Travel for Sports and USA Explore and Outdoor. And, really for every brand pillar that a destination might focus on, we have a large, multi-hundred thousand follower, if not over million follower account. And from all those accounts, we do around 4 billion or so monthly organic views. So, when we approach this opportunity, our goal is always, what can we do with our unique asset that nobody else has, to be able to solve, different outcomes. And in this case, how do we capture the attention of travelers that are going to be in the United States, and make sure that they come to your city? And so the way that we've designed this activation is we start by creating content that really talks about your destination, how they're going to get there, what they're going to do, and ultimately how easy it will be to get back home. So we're addressing all of those different logistical concerns, both around time and about affordability. We then take that content, put it on, or the ones that we have. But then the important part for us is making sure we're actually reaching the right target audience. And so, we've partnered with Adara to be able to be able to access travelers that we know either have confirmed bookings to the United States that are going to be in the host markets that can either fly or drive direct to your destination. Um, and we're able to target those people directly and make sure that if they're coming or they're considering, they're going to see that story. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you just a couple seconds of some of this content, but here's an example of what that story would actually look and sound like.
Pulled off the win, so now is the time to celebrate. And the place you have to visit is the #1 best big city in the US for 9 straight years, Chicago.
And the best news, getting to Chicago is convenient. You'll fly direct on American Airlines and land in only 2 hours, 10 minutes, with flights right now costing only $180 US.
And Chicago is filled with amazing hotels, and one of our favorites right now is the Palmer House Hilton. It's only $149 per night.
And Chicago has
There you go. So again, we go on then and we talk about, the city and everything you'll have to do. And the final point in all this is saying, hey, and there's the direct flight that comes back home. But of course, if you're trying to reach drive-in, it's a similar story. We talk about the affordability of driving there, where you'll stay, and then what you'll do for your time in destination.
So imagine you just wrapped up your World Cup.
And so So for every piece of content that we make, the goal here is, and sorry, let me see if I can go back to, thank you, is for every piece of content that we make, we also have a bookable landing page that joins it. And so the idea is, yes, it's great to see good content, but if you can't take action on it, it's not that useful. So we're able for every single match and every single itinerary, able to make a custom landing page that takes all the stuff that we have in the video and show people how they'll access it. We translate those patterns of speech, and then on those pages, we're showing real prices with wherever and those are in real time. So as soon as prices change, they're always going to see up-to-date content on social media, up-to-date content on the web. Then I think lastly, the most important is distribution, being able to partner with Adara to look at transactions. The other one is to partner.
I think we might have lost Andy. Andy was joining us from ITB in Berlin, so I think there was a lot to make it work with both the video, Zoom, and him speaking. So let's see if he's able to join us back.
I'm back. Where did I cut out?
Just I think when you were going for the slide, it was a little bit choppy, so I would recommend you just do the slide again.
I'll be quick, but the
No,
idea
that's
here
fine.
is
That's great stuff. So don't worry about that.
One is, so we actually make 2 versions of this landing page for every match. We do an itinerary for people coming before the match and one version of people coming after the match. And we customize it, for anything that's interesting going on in your destination during those dates. So if there's an amazing event, if there's concerts, if there's professional sports in town, we try to contextualize, not only why is your destination a great place to go, but also why are these dates special? Then we handle all the localization. So all the prices are in their home currency. It's translated into their language. We're optimizing it for them and for this foreign audience. But then the prices are real. So we give multiple places to book, both flights and hotels. We want to ultimately to have them have the best choice. And those are real-time prices. So the moment that prices change, we update the content on social, and then we update the content on the actual landing pages. And then lastly, we actually have two different partners with measurement solutions. So Adara is providing us targeting, but they also have a measurement solution where they can see who transacted across a network of partners. And then we're also working with Azira, and Azira essentially can allow us to understand who came to this landing page, and then did they actually show up in your destination? How long did they stay? And from there, we can start to figure out what the overall economic impact is. And we can work with, one or both of these partners to really try to understand, what was the impact of this activation once it went live. Um, you know, just one quick sort of final thought here is, all of this activation emerged from a similar one that we did last summer with Visit Milwaukee. A little bit different because they're hosting an event. They were hosting an IndyCar race called the Milwaukee Mile 250. And our goal was to drive, mostly fly in and longer drives. Traditionally, this has been a pretty local event, but we took a very similar content strategy. We made content about how cheap and easy the direct flights are. We made content for curating the hotels. We built a 4-day itinerary video that showed everything that was going on that weekend and why it was worth a 4-day stay rather than a 2-day stay. And we used Azira for that. So we were able to look at the visitation numbers from last year's event and the previous year's event. And we were able to see a very, very direct impact in actually bringing people in from a much larger drive radius and from those fly markets. So, we're excited to bring this to market for the partners that we have right now. And of course, if anybody wants to discuss, excited to think about how we can do this or something similar for you, Tim.
Thank you, Andy, so
Yeah.
much. That was super helpful. And I really liked how you combine, again, some very practical, tactical ideas, but also great emotion of the game and also ability to think how psychology changes, right, at different phases of the trip planning and how you adjust content, itineraries, recommendations like based on that. So really smart stuff. Thank you. So let's see if we have any audience questions that you would like to address to Marissa or to Andy while we have them for a few extra minutes. And while we're waiting, I'd like to ask both of you a question, and I'll start, Andy, with you. So at the moment, with many destinations are trying to attach themselves to the World Cup moment, right? And especially if they're not host cities, what do you think can help to create a competitive advantage? Like, is it content? Is it media strategy? Is it regional partnership that you might be able to forge with the other destinations? Is it timing? So what do you think bends
Yeah,
in the middle?
I think the most important thing is, and to me, you can put this message in whatever channels you think are most effective, but I think you have to do the work for the traveler. And again, our strategy in this is said, we did the research to figure out where are their direct flights, when are those flights leaving, and show people that not only is your destination great, of course, your destination has things to offer. There are reasons that people should visit, but in the larger context of people trying to figure out a very, very, frankly, confusing and what's likely for many people going to be an expensive trip, I think the onus is on you, the destination, to explain why this is something that's not going to, eat 2 full travel days and add a bunch of unnecessary expense. So I think if you can do the homework so they don't have to, there's a much better chance that they're going to take your advice because not many people are giving it.
And Marissa, anything to add?
I'll chime in here. I think a lot of the opportunities that we've kind of presented to different destinations, I feel like there's 2 paths that you can take as a non-host city. The first one is essentially a disruptive way where you reach the traveler that may not have been thinking about your destination. So this is when you go after travelers that know there are those host cities out there and they're planning to attend a match in those host cities. How do you disrupt their travel pattern and get them to consider your destination? I think that's the first way that you can really reach travelers that may have not been thinking about you. Very similar to what Andy said, do the homework for the traveler too. And I think the other opportunity or the second way that you can attract these travelers is really making sure that you're driving that inspiration and that education piece. there are some destinations out there that travelers just may not know. And especially considering our audience is about 50% international, that just gives you kind of more opportunity to educate them what is within our kind of our country and what they can see as they're exploring around. So those are kind of two highlights that I see as ways as a nano city to attract different travelers there. I know there's some questions popping up in the chat here, which is great. But Elena, take it away.
Yeah, there's a great couple of questions from Daphne, and I'll take the last one, and I think we can send like personal answer to the first one since it's very specific. But how long does it take to prepare to launch a campaign? We're 100 days away from FIFA starting, so what can be done in those 100 days? So Andy, you posted the answer, so maybe you
Yeah, I mean,
quickly.
on our end, it's less than 2 weeks. I mean, I think a big challenge that we've always looked in our company is social has historically been very hard. And so, operationally, we've always tried to figure out how do we make this fairly turnkey. We post on Instagram 1,000 times a day. So like we know how to do this. We have clear content strategy. We don't even need you to give us content. It's mostly just aligning on how do we tell the story, what markets do you care about, and how much investment are we going to put behind it, and how much reach do you want to get? And then we get to work. Simple as that.
I can't echo Andy enough on turnkey solutions. That is music to my ears. But when we're looking at the activation on Expedia, so the program that we put together, it essentially is a co-op program. So it is one of our turnkey solutions that you can utilize for the World Cup. I would say end to end, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks, just depending on how many new assets we have to include in the campaign, any potential revisions, how strategic we want to get in those initial discussions. But we know time is of the essence with this campaign, so we can be flexible and work on timing with you. But I would just say as a general time frame, about 3 to 4 weeks.
Awesome. And I'll try to squeeze in another question quickly. And it's a great question. It's about base camp cities, because again, like the halo effect expands beyond the host cities of the games. So the question is, any insights on whether there's likely to be tourism interest related to camp cities? What do you know about travelers from countries with specific base camp locations outside their scheduled game cities? For example, England is base camped in Kansas City, but has no scheduled games in Kansas City. So any thinking around that, like how can base camps be leveraged for destinations? And maybe Marissa and I will start with you.
Yeah. So that is a fantastic question. I feel like there's been a lot of kind of rippling effects from the World Cup in general. I have personally just been kind of keeping an eye on Kansas City, for example. And one trend that I actually do find with the data is that international demand is outpacing domestic demand for these specific cities. If there is anything that you want more insight in and want to dig into a bit deeper, if it's a base camp that's a little more closely located to your destination, please feel free to reach out to myself, and I will definitely either provide that information or connect you with the right person. But I've definitely seen some strong international traction for those types of situations.
And Andy, anything to add?
No, great answer, Mo.
All right. So as we wrap up, I just would like to give you the opportunity to share the last word of insights or one advice you would give a destination to take advantage of those 100 days. So Andy, anything that you haven't talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of just on general theme here, but I think just be empathetic towards them, and just ultimately at the end of the day, I also think it's up to all of us to make sure that whoever comes to the United States has a great experience. Both for this year and every year here in the future. Reputationally, there's a lot of work right now to be done, and so I think as we're all on the largest stage right now, let's show people what American hospitality is about, and what it's about, and make sure that's very alive and well. However, if you activate specifically for that or not, people are going to come.
Awesome. And Marissa?
I'll keep mine short and sweet. I think innovate, 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 as much as you can. There isn't going to be another event like this year, maybe the next 4 years. So this gives us a chance to test new things because we are going to reach new travelers and they're coming to places they may not have come just because of the draw from the initial World Cup. So obviously use innovation as strategically as possible, but I think this is the perfect chance to do so.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, thank you both so much. It's been incredibly valuable. I think you were able to pack so many great insights and data points and just really good advice into this really quick webinar. So all the information we presented today will be shared with all the participants and as well as contact information for Marissa and Andy, and I encourage you to reach out to them with additional questions. Again, they're fantastic partners and a great resource, I think, for our industry. So thank you again for joining us today, and we're looking forward to seeing you on our future webinars, and have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.